win teams, the Bears, which I think we all kind of knew, a little bit of a fraud. And the Rams, they're good. Boy, Jalen Ramsey's not having a great year. But I'll ask you, who is the second best team in the NFC this morning to Tampa Bay?
Well, you didn't like the Bears, and a couple weeks ago they kicked the crap out of the Buccaneers. That did happen, right? That's the same. Those are the same teams.
Yeah, but
So look, here's where I love you, because you've come around on something. Well, I mean, everybody's come around obviously on Saban, but if you remember, and we have the tape somewhere, when Saban got the job at Alabama, you thought it didn't matter, it wouldn't work, right? And what I said was, everyone said about Saban, he's not the world's greatest college football coach. He's an indefatigable recruiter. And when you combine that with the boosters and the reach and the passion of Alabama football, I thought it would work, and frankly, it has. That's what LeBron did, right? LeBron got to the West, and the West didn't lay down for him. Matter of fact, it was kind of a disaster because they couldn't find that second star. When he did, now he has a ready-made roster. Now all the things culture-wise that he wanted to put in place with the Lakers worked. They won a championship. And I think that's the difference here, because Brady took on a team where if Jameis Winston just didn't turn the ball over last year, they're in the playoffs. Now you have a guy who doesn't turn it over, a very good defense. It's very well coached with a great front seven, and then an offense that had good skill position players, and they reworked that offensive line. And yes, they are rounding into becoming the best team in the NFC. But I got to warn you, okay, two things happened here in this last week. One, they took on the Raiders, whose entire offensive line was sent home because of COVID, right? And so we have no idea what the Raiders really are based upon their performance against the Buccaneers. And secondly, they added Antonio Brown to the mix, and that can be toxic. More is not more, less is more. Now, Chris Godwin's out because he has a broken finger, so when Antonio Brown comes back, he may get more looks than he would have otherwise, but it should be pointed out that we still don't know how good Tampa is when they play on the road and he gets overwhelmed like he did in Chicago, and if Antonio Brown can live with getting 3, 4, 5 targets a game, even if his team is winning.
You know, it's interesting. I was saying Jerry Jones got really, really ticked off this morning on Dallas radio, and people forget what a pioneer Al Davis was. He took on the NFL. He was a former assistant NFL coach. He knew football. He was envied. He was clever. He hired John Madden at like 30. He was really progressive, smart. Last 8-9 years, it didn't turn out well. You know, Jerry took on the league. Stan Kroenke listens to him. He got teams in Vegas and Los Angeles. But then I watch them right now, and I don't think he's mad at the media. I think Jerry's mad at himself. I think he whiffed, and I think they're in danger of becoming the Raiders. A legendary owner, and they're just like they're embarrassing. Like the Raiders for about 8 years were embarrassing. Am I wrong on this? Are they becoming the Raiders under the older Al Davis?
There's a lot of parallels there. I think where you lose me is the Cowboys have players, right? The Raiders fell apart when they traded John Gruden. They lost in the Super Bowl. Bill Callahan was the right head coach for a year, but the wrong head coach long term. But, you know, Rich Gannon got hurt, and they didn't have any money, and they didn't have players, and then they made bad draft picks. That's not where the Cowboys are. The Cowboys, I would agree with you. The Mike McCarthy era is a mistake. It's an error. Mike McCarthy error, not E-A-R. E-R-A, sorry. But look, we should have seen this coming. Do you remember that he had that fluff piece in the NFL Network? I think it was like an hour special on how, like, every week he got together with his football coaches in Green Bay and watched tape on every snap, and he was ready to evolve as a football coach. He gets the job in Dallas, and two things happen which my antennas went up. Okay? First thing was at the press conference where he had told everybody, hey, I watched every snap of every game in the NFL. He admitted that he hadn't done it for the Cowboys. And, well, you know, he said those things to get the job. One, why did you admit it? And two, how can you do that? Secondly, he didn't call Dak Prescott for like the first 2 weeks he had the job.
Yeah.
That's your quarterback. Now, whether or not Dak was going to sign a long-term deal or a franchise tag deal, it didn't matter. Dak was the quarterback of the Cowboys. Like, that's the very first call you make. You don't call your wife, okay? You don't call your mom, your dad. You don't call your coaching buddies. The first call you make is to your quarterback. Hey, man, I'm so excited to work together. He didn't do that. So that right there, I'm blown away. DK Metcalf is playing harder on defense than anybody in the Dallas Cowboys.
That's true. Yeah, no,
right? The effort that he showed on one play is better than anything you see on tape from the Dallas Cowboys. And look, head coaching in the National Football League is not necessarily about X and O. It's not about being a great play caller. Yes, Andy Reid's a great play caller, and Sean McVay's a great play caller. It's about, can you stand in front of a room of 53 men and get them to believe that what you're telling them will in fact work if they do their job. That's what the best of the best do. And the fact that he can't get those guys to buy in at this point in the season through this amount of embarrassment just tells you it's not going to work. So I'm with you on the coaching staff. Light a match. The Kellen Moore thing I think actually works. It was working with Dak Prescott. Just get rid of everybody else and bring in somebody that can believe in. Look, if you're Jerry Jones, should you walk in today and just cut somebody? Right? Like, think of what he did last year with Jalen Smith. He was so mad about Ezekiel Elliott that he's like, give me somebody to sign. Give me somebody. Let's sign Jalen Smith. And they overpaid Jalen Smith, who, by the way, isn't what his contract says he should be and isn't playing with the effort he should play with. So now you got to do the exact same thing. First thing you should do is walk in and say, let's cut somebody. Cut somebody who thinks they know more than the coaching staff. And then if this thing doesn't turn around, don't be afraid to admit what most men won't do is admit they made a mistake and start over.
By the way, it's interesting. I'm going to defend Baker Mayfield here. OBJ got hurt, and then once he got hurt, people started delivering the data where Baker's actually better when he wasn't on the field with OBJ. And it doesn't sound like it makes sense, right? Chemistry is really hard. A great Hollywood marriages look like they should work. The kids are beautiful. They're two successful people. What a great life. They're both rich. Chemistry's hard. And you look at OBJ. It's nobody's fault. But OBJ was a superstar. Baker's having to overcome the dysfunction of Cleveland. And I look at this morning and I think, actually, Baker's probably better without OBJ. At Oklahoma, he just spread the ball around to a bunch of really good players. He was excellent. And in this game Sunday, OBJ gets hurt early. That's the best Baker's ever looked. And that it doesn't sound right. But I think OBJ is so big, he needs an Aaron Rodgers. He needs a star quarterback that can be at his level. And I think it's been very hard on Baker Mayfield here to make a superstar happy. And I think they're going to be both better without each other. Is that fair?
It is fair. There's a couple things here at play. First, let's be honest. It's the Bengals. Okay. Yeah. The Bengals are the same team that made Phillip Rivers look 10 years younger just the week before when they had a 3-score lead. Okay. So let's first catch our breath before we say, hey, Baker's a great quarterback in the NFL. He's playing against the Bengals, who are very much a work in progress on the defensive side of the ball. On the other hand, I'm with you. Look, let's start out and saying we all hope OBJ comes back and he's the same spectacular athlete.